Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. May 4th is just around the corner, and so is the new Clone Wars spin-off, The Bad Batch. I for one can't wait to see the beautiful animation style of the 7th season of the Clone Wars return once again. In preparation for this event, today we're going to be taking a look at all of the characters we know and love that are going to be returning in the Bad Batch series. So from what we can tell from the trailers, Wilhop Tarkin will be one of the major antagonists that the Bad Batch will have to face. The former Republic Admiral had been groomed by none other than Chancellor Palpatine. The Dark Lord saw much potential in Tarkin, and with the rise of the New Order, would place him in a greater position of power. Tarkin would still retain his Admiral rank, but he would also be made into a Moff of the Great Siswana sector. From what we can tell, Tarkin is tasked with overseeing Kamino during this time period. He seems to especially disapprove of the Bad Batch. Although they are highly effective in combat, they also lack discipline and possibly loyalty to the Empire. This will eventually lead to Tarkin giving the order to wipe out Clone Force 99. Now, one of the biggest questions I have about the Bad Batch series is what will happen to the world of Kamino during the transfer from the Republic to the Empire. Clearly from the trailers, Camino is going to be a major location in the first season. In Legends, we know that Kaminoans try to rebel against Palpatine once he tries to take over their world. This would lead to the famous Kaminoan Uprising. The Kaminoans would create their own loyalist clones and pit them against the 501st Legion, which was led by Boba Fett for that specific mission. The Kaminoans would lose this battle and their world would be occupied by the Empire, but this was a pretty suicidal move by them. They really had no chance going up against the entire Empire and all of its military might. Lama Su, the leader of the Kaminoans, has been allied with the Sith from the very beginning. He helped design the clones and also implant the chips that enforced Order 66. In return, the Republic rewarded his planet greatly and gave Kaminoans political representation, but now, with the Clone Trooper program ending, Lama Su will need to find a new way for his planet and people to stay relevant in the galaxy. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the Disney canon. I think Lama Su will try to at least help the Empire somewhat during this transitional period. The Bad Batch will eventually be on the run from the Empire, meet up with Saw Gerrera and his group of insurgents. This is going to be a much younger Saw with less breathing issues, and he'll also be less radicalized. Saw Gerrera and his sister had been Onderoni and resistance fighters during the Clone Wars. They managed to free their planet from a separatist puppet leader, but shortly after, the rise of the Empire led to another occupation. Saw Gerrera would then start the partisans and carry out asymmetric warfare against the Imperial occupiers on his planet. The Bad Batch are a pretty good match for Saw Gerrera in my opinion. Both have a very black and white sense of right and wrong, and both appreciate a good measure of violence in order to solve a problem. Most importantly, the Bad Batch and Saw Gerrera live for warfare and conflict. They all seem to be comforted by the non-stop action. Joining Saw Gerrera's partisans will be an appealing notion for the Bad Batch because they're basically the only anti-Imperial outfit during this time period. We don't really know much about Fennec Shand in The Mandalorian aside from the fact that she is a feared elite mercenary and assassin. Now, during the rise of the New Order, Fennec Shand was working for various underworld organizations like the Hutt clans as an assassin and an enforcer. This, of course, would place her in the sights of the Imperial Security Bureau. This would put Bad Batch and her on the same side if they ever got caught in a firefight, say, with a bunch of stormtroopers. And spoiler alert, Fennec Shand was an elite marksman, armed with an MK sniper rifle. She was able to control an entire battlefield if given time to prepare her position. From what we can tell, all of the Bad Batch members do decide to abandon the Empire except for one individual, Crosshair. He's absent in most of the scenes in the trailers that feature the Bad Batch, and there has been leaked information that the sniper will appear in Imperial armor, leading a new group of Stormtrooper recruits. Fennec Shand could be exactly what the Bad Batch is looking for, a little long-range Overwatch to replace their former sniper. A lot of people are calling this character the female clone. We're not exactly sure who she is and how she was made. She could potentially not be a clone and perhaps a daughter of one of the clones. Yes, clones are not sterile, they can have babies. She seems to also be wearing a giant jewel on her head, which is fitting with the cultural norms of most Kaminoan females. This tells me that the Kaminoans raised her as one of their own, with all the tradition and culture. She also has a really cool energy bow, which is similar to the one the Night Sisters use. Now, this will be pretty obvious for any of you guys who saw the 7th season of the Clone Wars. At the end of Clone Force 99's mission during the Battle of Anaxes, former ARC Trooper Echo decides to stay on with the unit. He even gets his own armor, which is kinda cool. Now, Echo has always seemed like one of the meeker clones throughout the Clone Wars. He was always a by-the-book type of clone, always tried to do things by the rules, but he is the ultimate survivor by this point, and even though now he's missing a hand, he seems to have adapted very well to this new unit. It'll be interesting to see how he reacts when his unit decides to leave the Empire. Captain Rex will also return in the Bad Batch. The good old captain became a fugitive the second he decided to disobey Order 66 and help his former friend Ahsoka Tano escape. It's very likely that the Republic High Command never knew about his betrayal. The ship Rex and Ahsoka had been on, the Tribunal, was destroyed during their escape attempt. The Republic will most likely assume that all clones aboard the ship, including Rex, were lost in the incident. We do know that Ahsoka Tano will go her own way after Order 66. She most likely will split up with Captain Rex in order to keep him safe. From what we can tell, Captain Rex will still be rocking his old school ARC Trooper armor. And this won't be the first time he's teamed up with the Bad Batch. They fought together during the Battle of Anaxes. Now, we've seen some images of Emperor Palpatine on large screens in the sizzle reel for Bad Batch. We're not really sure if we're going to see Palpatine that much in person, but he'll be that ever-present dark presence that is pushing for military reform. He is the one who decides to end the cloning program on Kamino and pushes for using Imperial citizens as recruits instead. There are many theories and reasons why Palpatine discontinues the cloning program, and maybe finally the Bad Batch will give us a bit more insight. This period of Star Wars history after Order 66 during this transition is not really covered in depth much. The Bad Batch will be the first show that is set during this time period, which makes a Star Wars nerd like me very excited. It also looks like the Bad Batch will be returning to the world of Zigeria. Zigeria is located far in the Outer Rim, and the people there generally hate the Republic because its policies have greatly limited their main economic output, which mainly came in the form of slavery. The Zigerians were heavily aligned with the Separatists during the Clone Wars and would buy large shipments of slaves from them. This seems like a good place for the Bad Batch to lay low from Imperial forces. But the Zigerians are also pretty dangerous individuals, and the Bad Batch will have to be careful while on this treacherous planet. During one of the battle test sequences on Camino, the Bad Batch are pitted against a group of DT series sentry droids. These are actually manufactured by Backtoward Combat Automata, the same people who created the B-1 battle droid. These are also the droids that Grand Admiral Thrawn kept in his office for sparring and combat training. Another Easter egg are these Spaceport Police droids that we see Wrecker just rip apart. These are actually a very popular model of droids used by local law enforcement, especially at spaceports. They were preferred over organic crews because it reduced the amount of life support needed in the building. They carried RG-4D blaster pistols and also used patrol speeders. We see a bunch of these spaceport droids get destroyed by Savaggio Press and Maul when they attempt to rob a space station in orbit over Cyblock. In the trailer, we also see another Star Wars classic, the dainaga. These are sentient, force-sensitive cephalopods with multiple tentacles and a lot of sharp teeth. These animals need to live in water and were famously found in the trash compactor of the Death Star. They apparently were very tasty grilled, and they made a good breakfast dish, although overcooking it tended to activate the blood parasites in the fatty tissue, which would really ruin the taste. In the first few years of the Empire, the galactic military would mainly be focused on squashing Separatist holdouts. This means we'll be seeing a lot of the B-1 battle droids that were not deactivated. In the trailer, we do see Bad Batch fighting against Separatist droids. This most likely would be the last few missions the Bad Batch would carry out for the Empire before they decide to leave. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are all the characters we know that are returning back to the Bad Batch. I know there are a lot of unconfirmed rumors about other characters. Let's discuss it in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.